Mankind's desire for peace can be realized only by the creation of a world government. There is no salvation for civilization or even the human race other than the creation of a world government. Well, if you don't believe in Jesus, there is no salvation other than depending on men for your salvation. And I can tell you now, they're not going to save you from death. Jawaharlal Nehru, he was the leader of India during the days of Mahatma Gandhi. I have long believed the only way peace can be achieved is through world government. That was India. Mahatma Gandhi didn't say that. Nehru said that. He also said, we have arrived at a stage where the next step must comprise of a world and all its states submitting to the authority of a world organization. Submitting to the authority. That's dangerous. Those words are really, really dangerous. That means the leaders want everybody totally submitted. That's the beginnings of tyranny, isn't it? Mortimer Adler, he was the 20th century American philosopher, educator and popular author. He said this: world peace is impossible without world government. You will not have world peace without a world government. If local civil government is necessary for local civil peace, then world civil government is necessary for world peace. I'm just going to keep reading through these. Winston Churchill, widely regarded as one of the greatest wartime leaders of the 20th century. He served as Prime Minister of the UK twice, 1940 to 45 and 51 to 55. He was also initiated into Freemasonry at Studholme Lodge 1591 London and raised to the 3rd degree on the 25th of March. So within a month or two he was lifted to 3rd degree. So this guy had a lot of power in how he spoke and related with people for them to lift him to the 3rd degree. Normally it's quite a few years to get the 3rd degree. You become a Master Mason at 3rd degree, and then after that they start indoctrinating you into the doctrines of Luciferianism. It's a step-by-step process. By 33rd degree, you're completely handed over to Satan. It's a dreadful secret society. And nearly all the influential leaders around the earth have been Freemasons or are Freemasons. In America, just about all of them are Freemasons. A few of them are Skull and Bonesmen, like the Bush family. The creation of an authoritative world order is the ultimate aim towards which we must strive. This is Winston Churchill. He also said, a world order in which the principles of justice and fair play protect the weak against the strong. So they're saying protecting the weak against the strong. They'll say whatever they have to. They'll lie just to make it sound appealing. So the weak think, oh yes, this sounds great. Communism promises that it'll be a balance there. But there never is. Charles de Gaulle. He was a French general and statesman who led the Free French forces during World War II. He later founded the French Fifth Republic in 1958 and served as its president from 1959 to 69. He said nations must unite in a world government or perish. Walter Cronkite. He was an American broadcast journalist, best known as anchorman for the CBS Evening News for 19 years, 1962 to 81. During the heyday of CBS News in the 1960s and 1970s, he was often cited as the most trusted man in America. Isn't that interesting? The most trusted man in America believes in a new world order, after being so named in an opinion poll. Regarding nuclear devastation, he said this. He said, if we are to avoid that catastrophe, a system of world order, preferably a system of world government, is mandatory. The proud nations someday will see the light, and for the common good and their own survival yield up their precious sovereignty. How's that? They will yield up their precious sovereignty, just as America's 13 colonies did 2 centuries ago. Yield up their precious sovereignty. Strobe Talbott is an American foreign policy analyst associated with Yale University and the Brookings Institution, a former journalist associated with Time magazine and diplomat who served as the Deputy Secretary of State from 1994 to 2001. He said, in the next century, nations as we know it will be obsolete. All states will recognize a single global authority. National sovereignty wasn't such a great idea after all. So he's saying the way the world's set up at present isn't the best idea. So all of these guys, I'm going to keep going, you're going to be amazed who says this, who believes in this stuff. Tony Blair, globalization has transformed our economies and our working practices. It is a political and security phenomenon. We are all internationalists now, whether we like it or not. We are witnessing the beginning of a new doctrine of international community, another fancy name for New World Order. Robert Kennedy, the brother of John F. Kennedy, served from 61 to 64 as the US Attorney General. All of us, he said, will ultimately be judged on the effort we have contributed to building a new world order. That's an interesting quote, isn't it? Richard Nixon, there he is.
There he is.
In October 1967, he was quoted in Foreign Affairs in saying, "The developing coherence of Asian regional thinking is to evolve regional approaches to development needs and to the evolution of a new world order." So he's talking about Asia. A few years later, in the New York Times reported Nixon saying that he spoke of the talks as a beginning, merely reiterating the belief he brought to China that both nations share an interest in peace and building a new world order.
There's that word again.
There's that word again. Nelson A. Rockefeller. He served as the 41st Vice President of the United States in 74 to 77 under President Gerald Ford, and as the 49th Governor of New York, 1959 to 73. He also served as the administrations of Presidents Franklin Roosevelt, Harry Truman, and Dwight Eisenhower in a variety of positions. So, very influential man. Associated Press, July 26, 1968, reported that New York Governor Nelson Rockefeller stated that as president, he would work towards international creation of a new world order. Henry Kissinger, he's a German-born American writer, political scientist, diplomat, and businessman. A recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize, he served as National Security Advisor and later concurrently as a Secretary of State in the administrations of President Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford. After his term, his opinion was still sought by some subsequent US presidents and other world leaders. And he said this, "So we say to all peoples and governments, let us fashion together a new world order. The new world order cannot happen without US participation, as we are the most significant single component. Yes, there will be a new world order, and it will force the United States to change its perceptions." Nelson Mandela. We've received a great deal of disinformation in relation to Nelson Mandela. I just wanted to put this here. To find out what he is really like, watch the YouTube video Dr. Peter Hammond, one of two, and he did a video called My Meeting with Nelson Mandela. A very important bit of information about him because this guy has been misrepresented in the world. He's not the guy that we've all been taught in our history books that he is. Anyway, the New World Order that is in the making must focus on the creation of a world of democracy, peace and prosperity for all. See, they're all in it. They're all in it. Now, when you get combined world leaders all over the earth, all aiming for the same objective, what's going to happen? They're going to achieve it. They're going to achieve it. And the Bible tells us that they achieve it. President Mubarak, former president of Egypt, was reported by the New York Times saying in April 1995, the renewal of the Non-Proliferation Treaty was described as important for the welfare of the whole world and the New World Order. Fidel Castro.
One of his happier photos.
I love that photo. It's not a happy man, is he? You know, Cuban dictator Fidel Castro, before the UN in 1979, this is what he declared: "We must establish a new world order based on justice, on equity, and on peace." Isn't it funny that warmongers use the term peace all the time? It's interesting. Mikhail Gorbachev, the former leader of the Soviet Union: "We are moving toward a new world order, a world of communism." See, he knows a world of communism. Well, that's what he wants. "We shall never turn off that road." George. George Herbert Walker Bush in September 11, 1990. Who's seen the videos of George Bush talking about the New World Order? Anyone? Yeah, a few of us. You can watch a lot of these statements, not a lot of them, a few of them anyway, on video. And this one especially is a popular one. "Out of these troubled times," he said, "our objective, a new world order, can emerge. Today, that new world order is struggling to be born, a world quite different from the one we have known." Now, George Herbert Walker Bush has probably got more quotes on the New World Order than nearly any other president. And there's a page where you can get them all. I just select two. January 9, 1991, at a press conference, he said this in relation to the Gulf crisis, that it had to do with a new world order. And that new world order is only going to be enhanced if this newly activated peacekeeping function of the United Nations Provesto be effective. So he's pushing for that new world order. His son, George Bush, W. Bush, we have confidence because freedom is the permanent hope of mankind, the hunger in dark places, the longing of the soul. When our founders declared a new order of the ages, when soldiers died in wave upon wave for a union based on liberty, when citizens marched in peaceful outrage under the banner freedom now, they were acting on an ancient hope that is meant to be fulfilled. That was his inaugural address, January 20th, 2005. His inaugural address, he brought up the New World Order. That's pretty gutsy. Because isn't this supposed to be a theory? Wikipedia classes it as a theory. There's no theory here, this is fact. Barack Obama. The way we are going to win over the long term is not just militarial. We've got to win out over hearts and minds. What that means is we have got to invest in countries that have no educational infrastructure, have no means for young people to get ahead. We've got to give them a stake in creating the kind of world order I think all of us would like to see. So he makes it sound like this world order is going to bring education to the underprivileged and all that sort of thing. Nothing of the kind. Nothing of the kind. He's lying through his teeth. And you're going to see why soon. Adolf Hitler. National Socialism will use its own revolution for the establishing of a new world order. The New World Order has been the coveted goal of dictators and leaders worldwide for centuries, ever since the Jacobins first punned the New World Order. But they had a lot to do with the French Revolution. Peace and security. Historian Walter Mills described the efforts of Colonel Mandel House, chief advisor to President Woodrow Wilson, speaking of his hidden motive for involving America in World War I. The Colonel's sole justification for preparing such a batch of blood for his countrymen was his hope of establishing a new world order of peace and security. That was the motive and intention behind World War I. 1 Thessalonians 5:2-3 says, "For you know very well that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night." While people are saying peace and safety, and this is the thing, they're all saying it's for peace and security, destruction is going to come on them suddenly as labour pains on a pregnant woman, and they will not escape. During World War I, Nicholas Murray Butler, winner of the Nobel Peace Prize, isn't that interesting? 1931, he gave this address in 1915. "The old world order died with the setting of that day's sun, and a new world order is being born while I speak, with birth pangs so terrible that it seems almost incredible that life could come out of such fearful suffering and such overwhelming sorrow." Declaration of Interdependence. This 1976 document was signed by 32 US senators and 92 US representatives. It read in part, "2 centuries ago our forefathers brought forth a new nation. Now we must join with others to bring forth a new world order." The coming one world leader, Daniel 8:23-25, it says, "In the latter part of their reign, when rebels have become completely wicked, a fierce-looking king, a master of intrigue, will arise. He'll become very strong, but not by his own power. He'll cause out astounding devastation and will succeed in whatever he does. He will destroy those who are mighty, the holy people. He will cause deceit to prosper, and he will consider himself superior." So it's saying the same thing as Revelation 13, that he will destroy the holy people or the saints of God. He will destroy them. "When they feel secure, he will destroy many and take his stand against the Prince of Princes." Who's the Prince of Princes? Jesus. "Yet he will be destroyed, but not by human power." I believe it will be the Battle of Armageddon. The coming one world leader, again in Daniel 7:25-27, speaks about he will speak against the Most High and oppress his holy people, and he will try to change the set times and the laws. The holy people will be delivered into his hand for a time, times, and half a time. That's the tribulation. But the court will sit, and his power will be taken away and completely destroyed forever. Then the sovereignty, power, and greatness of all the kingdoms under heaven will be handed over to the holy people of the Most High. That's the believers in Jesus Christ. His kingdom will be an everlasting kingdom, and all rulers will worship and obey him. Revelation 13:5-8, if we remember, it says, the beast was given a mouth to utter proud words and blasphemies and to exercise its authority for 42 months. It opened its mouth to blaspheme God and to slander his name and his dwelling place and those who live in heaven. It was given power to wage war against God's holy people and to conquer them. And it was given authority over every tribe, people, language and nation. All inhabitants of the earth will worship the beast, all whose names have not been written in the Lamb's book of life, the Lamb who was slain from the creation of the world. So that's all speaking, they're all pretty much saying the same thing, weren't they? So the stage is being set for a political man who will come along and boast and blaspheme the God of heaven. For centuries in Christian nations, the masses would not have accepted a proud blasphemer, would they? I said this earlier. But in this modern culture, Hollywood and TV and all the other media formats are inundating the masses with anti-Christian sentiment. Continuously. Continuously. It's just pumped on you. You can just barely watch a channel for more than an hour without someone saying something anti-God or, you know, using Jesus' name in vain or whatever. These media formats have been indoctrinating them through disinformation. Disinformation is deliberate information that's been twisted so to make people think the way they want them to think. Misinformation is when someone gets something wrong. Like I might occasionally say some misinformation. I'll think it means that, and I'll say what I think it means, and then I'll find out later, oh, it didn't mean that. That's sort of worthy of an apology sort of thing. But disinformation is deliberate and intentional.
Yeah.
In indoctrinating them through disinformation to believe the lie that God does not exist. And if he did, he is evil. So you talk to these atheists, they don't believe God exists, but if he did, he's an evil God, he's a bad God, he's a terrible God, look what he did to Job, look what he did to, you know, they've got all these arguments for it. But it's the propaganda they've been led to believe. You know, through this worldwide propaganda, the masses will receive this man of lawlessness. They're going to embrace him. They're going to be open arms to him. And I believe he's not far. He's not far from stepping up to the throne that Satan has ready for him. This man is an interesting man, Robert Muller. He talked of a one-world religion. He was an international civil servant with the United Nations. Assistant Secretary General for 40 years, his ideas about world government, world peace and spirituality led to the increased representation of religions in the UN, especially of the New Age movement. He was very accepting of that. He was known by some as the philosopher of the United Nations. And he said this, that we must move as quickly as possible to a one-world government, a one-world religion under a one-world leader. Those were his words. He continues, he said, if Christ came back to earth, his first visit would be on the United Nations. That's what he believes. If Christ came back, his first visit would be straight to the UN to see if his dream of human oneness and brotherhood had come true. He'd be happy to see representatives of all nations, north and south, east and west, rich and poor, believers and non-believers, young and old, Philistines and Samaritans, trying to find answers to the perennial questions of human destiny and fulfillment. You don't have to try to find them, they're there in the Bible, but if you don't look at the Bible as the authoritative text, then you're not going to find them. So he's trying to tell us that Jesus would embrace these world leaders. Does it say that in the Bible, that when Jesus returns, he's going straight to the UN? Oh, I didn't see that. Imagine that. He also said this, was it not inevitable that the UN would sooner or later also acquire a spiritual dimension? Of course it was inevitable. The Bible tells us it was going to happen. I have come to believe firmly today that our future peace, justice, fulfillment, happiness and harmony on this planet will not depend on world government, but on divine or cosmic government. Meaning that we must seek to apply the natural, evolutionary, divine, universal or cosmic laws which must rule our journey in the cosmos. So now the world government is becoming this religious institution. This is getting dangerous. This is getting dangerous when you start hearing world leaders speak like this. Anyone heard of Hans Kuhn? A close ally of Robert Muller, and author of the book Global Responsibility in Search of a New World Ethic. And he's a Catholic theologian. He's been president of the Foundation for a Global Ethic since 1995. A global ethic. You're going to find out a little bit about the global ethic in just a moment. Mr. Kong said, any form of church conservatism is to be rejected. Church conservatism. You know what that means? People that believe the Bible. To put it bluntly, no regressive or repressive religion, whether Christian, Islamic, Jewish or whatever provenance, has a long-term future. So now he's saying anyone that doesn't yield to what I'm setting up doesn't have a future. If ethics is to function for the well-being of all, it must be indivisible. The undivided world increasingly needs an undivided ethic. Postmodern men and women need common values, goals, ideals and visions. And who's going to set them in place? The UN? But the great question in dispute is, does not all this presuppose a religious faith? What we need is an ecumenical world order. The most dangerous word in religious circles is ecumenicalism. Paul-Henri Spaak. He was a Belgian socialist politician and statesman who served as Prime Minister of Belgium between 38 and 39, in 46 and 47 to 49. He was the first President of the United Nations General Assembly in 46 to 57, the first President of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, then called the Consultative Assembly in 1949 to 50, and as the second Secretary General of NATO in 57 to 61. This guy's been around. He said this, what we want is a man of sufficient stature to hold the allegiance of the people and to lift us out of the economic morass into which we are sinking. Send us such a man, and be he God or the devil, we will receive him. So they don't care whether he's godly or not. That's dangerous. That's a dangerous statement by such a man in such a position of power and authority in the world today says something that evil. Who's heard of mind control? Yes.